We're going to be starting the trigonometry, and trigonometry is the geometry of triangles. Specifically, we're going to be doing the trigonometry of right angle triangles for this and the next couple of lessons. So part one, we're going to have to talk about naming first. So what we have a triangle. And it's a right angle triangle, so I'm going to put the right angle over there. And then I'm going to pick an angle to be a special angle. So I'm going to say that this angle over here, that's kind of our chosen angle. That's our chosen angle one. I'll explain what that means later. But for now, we're just know we're going to be choosing an angle that's not the right angle triangle. And now we're going to name some sides. Now one side we already know is the name of this one over here. So this is the hypotenuse. So when you have a right angle triangle, the side that's across from the 90-degree angle is the hypotenuse. Now, the next side we're going to name is we're going to be calling a side an opposite side. Now, an opposite side is going to be a side that is opposite our chosen angle. So here's our chosen angle. So imagine we're kind of looking what side is across from it. Oh, that's the side that's across from it. So this side we're going to call the opposite side. And then the one that's left over we're going to call the adjacent side. Right, so it's pronounced adjacent, the adjacent side. And adjacent means next to. So this side is next to the chosen angle, this side is opposite the chosen angle, and the hypotenuse is just always the hypotenuse. Now, we're going to define some trig ratios. So we're going to have some ratio definitions. So ratio definitions. So the first one we're going to define is the sine ratio. And the sine ratio is defined as the length of the opposite side divided by the length of the hypotenuse. So the sine ratio is going to be a length divided by a length. That's the ratio. The next ratio we're going to define is something called the cosine ratio. And the cosine ratio is going to be the length of the adjacent side all divided by the length of the hypotenuse. And then we're going to have, last but not least, we're going to have the tangent ratio, which is going to be the length of the opposite side over the length of the adjacent. You're going to have to kind of memorize these three things, but there's going to be an easy way to do it. Well, a well-known way to do it. So these are the three important ratios in trigonometry: the sine, the cosine, and the tangent ratio. Now we're going to, that's a lot of writing, so we're going to try to summarize that a little. So the first thing we're going to do, instead of writing sine, we're going to do this really wonderful abbreviation, and we're going to call it just sin, which saves us a whole letter, which is not necessarily the best abbreviation, but we know. 25% reduction, not too shabby. Now sine is the length of the opposite over the length of hypotenuse, so I'm going to write it as length of opposite divided by length of the hypotenuse. Cosine is going to be abbreviated also with the first three letters, and we're going to abbreviate that as cos. In fact, these abbreviations are so common that people often refer to these ratios as just the abbreviations. So they'll say the sin, the cos, and as we're going to find out, the tan ratio. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent will be abbreviated as tan. And that's going to be the opposite over the adjacent. And those are the three trig ratios.